Welcome to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, when you just need to talk about pyramids.
And Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels, demons, and monsters, serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. You guys smoke them if you got them. We all got cigars. Bringing in the new year.
Spark them up.
Oh, there we go. Give me a lighter here.
All right, so my plan for this year for you folks out there is to skirp derp to the best of my ability. I shall not fail you.
Oh, yeah, and we have a guest with us in studio. We have Mr. GMA, Archer.
Hello, hello.
Who is, you all may know from such shows as Bots Late Night.
Beep, beep, beep. Didn't hear that? It's an honor to be here. First episode of the new year.
That's right. First episode of the new year.
Episode 80.
Episode 80. Yeah. Again, just to let you guys know, we did record an episode 80, but I was way too high for that show. So I pulled it. To those of you who might have actually downloaded it right after it got uploaded, I apologize. Just saying. This is the new official episode 80.
Episode 1 does not exist because I was way too drunk for that show.
We've all done it. All right, to start this one off, as always, we have
No soundbite.
What's going on here?
Sorry. Back to you, Russ.
Space weather news. Solar eclipse this weekend. On January 6th, which is tomorrow, for us, the new moon will pass in front of the sun, producing a partial eclipse visible from coastal China to the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. At maximum, 71% of the sun will be covered, turning the solar disk into a deep crescent. Also, solar wind ignites big auroras. Earth is entering a stream of solar wind flowing from a large hole in the sun's atmosphere, which we have talked about this before. Large holes in the atmosphere, but no sunspots, right? First contact on January 4th ignited big auroras around the Arctic Circle. Intermittent G1 class geomagnetic storms are in progress as the Earth moves deeper into the stream on January 5th. Arctic skywatchers should remain alert for auroras for the rest of the weekend. This stream of solar wind is wide and should influence our planet for the next 48 hours. Wow. And there's some great pictures of look at the auroras that it's causing.
God,
yeah. Check that out, buddy.
So I can expect some electronics to go bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Expect your electronics to go bad. So, GMA, you took a trip.
I did,
this.
yes.
So tell us about that. Where'd you go? What was the deal?
So this was just simple family trip up to New York. Go visit the sister. She lives up in town. Up there. And we got an Airbnb at a house up outside Woodstock, New York, it was near Mount Trimper and Mount Pleasant and all these little towns up there. And it's right on the foothills leading into the Catskill mountain range there.
Okay.
And girlfriend wanted to go for a hike on Christmas Day, and so I decided to do a little researching while I was there. And
is there anything worth walking to?
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything worth walking to?
I got to just walk in a giant circle in a forest, or is there anything worth walking to?
Is there anything that serpents are interested in nearby?
Turns out that there is a serpent effigy that is on the side of Overlook Mountain outside of Woodstock, New York.
Oh.
And it is recognized as an astronomical alignment to Draco, the constellation Draco, which
the dragon.
is the dragon or the
serpent.
Let me move that micro.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's just put it right there.
Yeah.
And so on Christmas Day, we went and took the main hike, which is you just take a fire truck trail all the way up to this top of this overlook, which overlooks the Hudson River Valley, looking towards New York State and farther south. And up at the top, you have a fire watch tower that you can climb up and look around, where they used to watch for forest fires and all that. And then you can walk down to a little overlook. And while I was doing research on the hike itself, I stumbled across a webpage that is I think it's hosted by the New York Forestry Division. And all of that park is part of the New York Forests National or State Forest.
State Forests, yeah.
And the webpage was talking about these Indian mounds that were located on park property that, with the mounds and also what they call the effigies, which are large boulders with dry laid stone walls leading up to them, they make up a patterning that lines up with the constellation Draco. And so we went and did our Christmas Day hike, got to see all our neat overlooks and all that, and you can see it all the way across the Hudson River Valley from up there. You're seeing miles up there, and you're seeing just this huge swath of land that's been cut out by probably glacial or meltwater or something. You know, the river's this tiny little snake winding through the valley, and this is just massive valley. So on the way back down that day, we took a side trail. And the night before, I had set up on my phone on Google Maps some points that I thought were in good relation to what I found on a topographical survey map of the locations of the mounds and the serpent effigies and all that.
Okay.
And so my girlfriend and I walk off trail on this little beaten, not often walked on trail. You can tell because there's logs laying across it and all that. And from the maps, I could tell that eventually leads to a cell tower and other stuff they had built on the side of the mountain and a little ranger station and all that. But I was wondering if there were trails leading off of that we could use to get down to where all these mounds were supposed to be, because they're kind of off the side of this mountain leading down into the valley. And so we get to the cell tower, and we're kind of exploring beyond the edge of the cell tower on the edge of the mountain, and we only had maybe an hour of daylight left, and you really have to beat some brush to get down there off the side of the mountain. So I said, okay, let's get back to the car. I'm going to drive up another road I saw on the map. We had talked to a guy up top, and he was like, yeah, I don't know if you can get down to those. You might have to use this road, California Quarry, to go up and then get access from there. So looking at my map.
I can't get there from here.
I can't get there from here, so I'm going to have to walk through these woods here. So we get back to the car, and on the way back down the mountain, there's this California Quarry Road, and I go up this road, and you keep going up and up the side of this mountain, and there's these giant vacation homes on either side going up, and eventually the homes stop, and the road keeps going up the side of this mountain, and it starts getting overgrown. You're driving past trees, scratching the sides of the cars and all that.
Yeah.
Finally got up to a point where it's like, okay, based on my Google map point, I'm about 1,500, 2,000 feet from where these are supposed to be.
Straight down.
Well, it's like horizontally, I'm about that far. So I'm like, okay, sun's going down. I'll come back tomorrow and try and find this myself. And so the next day, I go back up there, park the car on the road, keep following the road up there, and it kind of winds around the side of the hill. And then from there, I can see that, okay, I'm about 1,500 feet horizontally off from where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I start working my way down the hill. And granted, it's
This time you're by yourself?
I'm by myself.
Okay.
Yeah. And luckily, I have cell phone service out there for whatever reason.
Giant cell tower right
there. You know.
For some strange reason.
And so I start working my way sideways and down this hill. And granted, it's December in New York, so there's these seeping springs coming out of the side of the mountain that have just frozen solid. Mm-hmm. And so in some cases, you know, it's almost like a tiered landscape where you'll have a kind of a flat layer and then 20, 30 feet drop off of boulders and rock side and then another flat area. And so I make it to the first flat area, and I'm comparing pictures to what I've found online of where these stone mounds and all this is supposed to be. And I looking around, no, I got to be right here. Okay, no, my point's, you know, another 300 or 400 yards up. So I keep going, slowly working my way down the mountain. I'm having to butt scoot down patches of ice, and some of it's ice, and then where there's not ice, there's just the thickest, slickest moss you've ever seen. So it's okay,
Slide City.
If I'm gonna have to get back up here, it's gonna be really hard to get back up this way. And so I keep working my way down, and my dad's texting me through the whole thing. Where are you at? Where are you at? He's worried because I'm out in the woods by myself. It's like, don't worry, I got
Classic.
this.
Yeah.
Classic.
Don't worry, Dad. I've disappeared without a trace.
Yeah, exactly. And I keep working my way down. I get another maybe 300 or 400 yards down, finally to my point, and I'm like, I'm looking around. I can't see anything that looks like a mound or a stone wall or anything. Keep looking around, pull up my map, compare it to the topographical map with the GPS or with the survey points. Oh no, I'm actually looking at these curves. I'm off. It's farther down in the valley. I got to keep going further down.
Oh, yeah.
And back towards the way I came. And so I work my way down 2 or 3 more tiers to these flat levels. I'm like, okay, it's got to be the next flat level that I get down to because everything's showing like flat areas on these pictures. Finally, I'm at this level and there's like a 30, 40 foot drop down to the next level, and I see this stone wall like curving its way through the trees up to this giant boulder.
That's the moment right there where you're like,
That's it. I found it. Yes, I found it. Okay. So I finally get my way down, like butt scooting my way down these ice patches and mossy spots, and the ground is covered in dead leaves and these slabs of slate that have just fallen off the mountain. It's all slate and I think granite out there. And finally get down to the first stone effigy, and it's this massive boulder that looks like maybe it fell off the side of the mountain or something like that. But then winding up to it is dry laid stone wall. And so I marked that point on my GPS. So I exactly knew where it was finally in comparison to where I thought it was.
Yeah.
And from there I could see other mounds, small cairns, and also the next stone wall. And
How big are small cairns? Like, what are we talking here?
we're talking maybe 3 feet in diameter, 2 to 3 feet high.
Oh.
And once I saw the first one, you started seeing
Suddenly
them
you're seeing them
everywhere.
everywhere,
It's
yeah.
Were
like-
you walking on dirt or was it rocky?
no, it's like almost all shale, like slabs of shale, and then large boulders.
So the cairns couldn't have been bigger but buried in dirt. Basically, they were on rock.
They could have, but some of them were actually stacked on a boulder.
Oh, okay.
Like, so I've got
okay,
a few
cool.
pictures of ones where it's, 3-4 foot wide, 2-3 foot tall boulder, and then the cairn is built up on top of that.
Oh,
Did you
wow.
bring all these photos we can post in the
I
show
did,
notes?
yeah. I actually
yeah.
I shared them with Russ. so.
Yeah.
And according to what I could find, there was supposed to be 2 larger cairns out there. I think I may have found them, but it's hard to tell if that was cairn or actually where the rock wall fell over, and it's just like a pile of rocks.
Yeah.
But once I got to the second snake effigy, there was another another dry laid wall that was actually running downhill, perpendicular to the slope of the mountain. So it's like they had a dry wall coming up perpendicular to the slope of the mountain to one of the boulders, and then another one going off from there. Like they were actually cordoning off sections
Oh, wow.
up there.
Probably just early farmers, getting ready to plow the field.
Dude, that was perfect plowing land, let me tell you, dude. 45-degree angle, all the shale you could drink.
Yeah.
So I got some GPS points on the 2 major formations I could find, and once I was into it, I realized everywhere I turned there's a cairn.
Wow.
There's a mound everywhere I turn. Oh, there's a mound. 4 feet later, oh, there's another mound.
Wow.
10
so
feet
it's
later,
just
there's
like
another mound and another mound, and they're just all over the side of that mountain.
snake food.
Snake food, all over.
Just like a couple of serpents and a bunch of snake food. Snake dots.
Snake bites.
Snake bites. laying around.
Well, and in my research, I was reading up on it before and after, and they were saying that the large cairns form the snake effigy, and then there's smaller cairns that form almost like a grid work pattern within
What?
that,
Oh, man.
which is, I haven't figured out why or any of that. But
So I'm curious.
They were triangulating the constellation of Draco.
So I'm
Grids.
curious about that.
Grids, you gotta-
Yeah, like the alignment. They're claiming the alignment to Draco. Well, we've talked about this before, but due to precession,
How much
it's
is it
going
drifted?
to
it's going to drift, yeah.
right. It's going to turn out of alignment necessarily.
Yeah.
Like you might have, it's the same pattern, on the ground, but is it
But it's
mirrored?
shifted.
As above, so below.
So it is mirrored. It's a flip image of Draco. It's not set up like you were to lay it on top.
So if
of
you were
in the
seeing
sky.
the constellation in the sky and you look below, it would look like a mirror image.
Right.
But because of precession, like I wonder if it's drifted out of angle.
Yeah, that I don't know.
That would be
I'm
cool
still
to
trying
see because
yeah.
that's kind of like how you date. You could possibly date it.
Right.
Or if you roll the entire thing back 12,000 years, it may have been.
It may have been a mirror flip of it.
Yeah,
right?
it may have been a perfect imprint rather than a mirror.
Right.
Ah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I got as many pictures as I could get without making my dad feel like he was freaking out. I just got to get more pictures. You know?
Did you bring your Glad bag?
I had a backpack with some snacks, some water, and a cold beer.
Did you even have a life straw?
I was ready to glad. Oh no, man! There was ice all over the place. I was grabbing an icicle. And stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, try drinking water from an icicle for too long.
Right.
Yeah.
So thirsty.
Yeah. Man, that's really cool.
It was phenomenal though, and you know, you're in this pine and birch forest, I think it is, and they just came out of nowhere, out of the forest. Like I'm just looking trees, brush and trees. All of a sudden, bam! There's a stone wall just out of nowhere on the side of this mountain.
Yeah.
And you made the point, good farming ground. There's no way anyone's farming there.
Yeah.
It took me, with a GPS point getting me within 300 or 400 yards, it took me an hour to find them off a half mile off the road.
Yeah.
That's rugged.
Rugged. And then on the way back, you have to climb back up that elevation to get back to where you parked the car.
Yeah.
And I'm just like dying up this mountain. Like every 50 feet, just, okay, I got to take a breath.
Yeah.
And eventually I worked my way back up to where I could see the roof of a house. And I was like, okay, I'm getting close to the road again. Watching my GPS point with relation to the road, kind of working my way around instead of up the hill, so I'm not killing myself. And finally make it back to the road about midpoint up from where I had parked, and then had to walk all the way back up the road to where I parked.
Wow. So the place we went to in Vermont was called Smith Farm, right? And that's kind of misleading because the area where we were looking at these giant cairns that were all over the place in the woods, it was not ever farmland. I mean, it wasn't flat. It was the sides of mountains. It was the same deal. And there would be giant...
And there were some boulders that were like half the size of a house.
Yeah,
just
absolutely
huge,
enormous.
And there would be this massive cairn stack up the side of it, like almost to the top of it. And they're all two-hander stones. I mean, full arm stones.
Right.
Kind of rounded.
Right, you didn't just easily carry that up the side.
No.
Yeah.
And they were fairly, in my memory, uniform.
Yeah.
Like the stones, they didn't look hewn or anything, but they were fairly. It wasn't just like massive oblong shards.
And then little bitty guy in the middle.
Right. It
tucked
was.
in there,
They were
yeah.
all basically kind of like two-handed,
Right.
two-armed,
Yeah,
size
bread
stones.
loaf shaped things,
Right,
like kind of
right.
like very interesting.
And so I was going to ask you, did you obviously saw like the geology, basically what the natural stone was. Did you notice any, say like quartz, crystal chunks in any of the
like bright white
I
rocks.
didn't get a
amidst
chance to look really carefully at the rocks themselves, but in those dry laid fences, there are the flat shale stones mixed in with these big nodes, these big round nodes that are mixed, and you can see.
And
those
how
in the
big?
pictures.
Like, are we talking? What
Or,
are,
I mean, you're talking size of a basketball.
Okay.
Type stuff. Nothing. The big stones were the snake heads, basically,
boulders,
which are
yeah, at
like
the ends.
twice the size of a VW.
Yeah,
They're massive.
and probably like you said, rolled down the mountain maybe. Or,
That's what it looked like to me, because there, you have a lot of broken off stone above you and like kind of cliff.
but you weren't able to
formations.
check closely to see if it was the same kind of rock. Basically,
No.
Yeah,
I was kind of under a time crunch and just get the pictures and get the
yeah.
fuck
You're
out.
under a dad crunch.
Yeah, under a dad crunch. Hey, you got to snake bros where you can.
that's right, dude. Hey, job well done.
Job well done.
I love that feeling when you first see it.
See it.
You know, you're
Oh,
just
that
like,
was-
Yeah.
That was unbeatable.
I have this like, you know, first see it exclamation.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that's what I had in the middle of the woods by myself. It was just, I found him. I found him.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a great feeling.
Because it was like, you know,
those guys in there sitting out on the porch, you know. Way down off the side of the mountain.
someone.
Someone just found a serpent mound.
Yeah, I definitely had that feeling, especially because, you know, I'm working trying to find this GPS point, this mythological GPS point, and it's like every stair step terrace I go down is another struggle I know I'm gonna have to face going back
going
up.
back
So
up,
I've gone down like 3 or 4, and it's like I'm not seeing this. I'm standing what I think should be right on top of it, and then I found it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's fantastic.
And then suddenly they're everywhere, and you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just couldn't see him enough.
Right.
Like, literally everywhere.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
That's really cool. And
cheers to that, buddy.
Cheers to that.
I assume the forest canopy is probably too thick for you to see it from the sky from Google Earth.
I could not see them from what I looked at from Google Earth.
Yeah.
Amazingly, the pictures, from what I could tell, are taken during the winter. So there's no leaf cover there. But,
Right, and you still can't see it.
But I mean, you're trying to discern this giant boulder with a stack of rocks next to this giant boulder, which is the wall of the cliff you're next to.
Yeah.
So I need to go back and look with these eyes, but
yeah.
I couldn't discern it from looking at it before I found them.
Right.
So we're planning to go to Vermont in the fall this year, and we're gonna go back to Smith Farm.
yeah.
Awesome.
And try to the tree canopy so full that we couldn't, you know, we weren't getting good GPS.
And it was dark,
3D.
It was
Yeah.
dark down there, like literally the canopy
See,
so
that's
thick.
I didn't have that problem because
Yeah.
all the trees have been stripped,
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
for the pine trees, and there weren't that many on the side of the mountain there.
So beyond taking like a surveying instrument and a bunch of string and measuring tapes and a pad, it's like it's going to be really hard to try to figure out if there's some type of order
Right.
to what's going on in Smith Farm. But I at least want to bring a sketchbook
yeah.
to try to get some of the ideas from various vantage points of what's going on
That's
the
a
ground.
good idea, definitely.
But yeah. And we're going to try to locate this cave that the Vikings built.
yeah.
That's right. I heard y'all talking about that on that episode.
Yeah, which we think is, you know, one of the colonial root cellars.
Yeah.
So root cellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you build a cave, right?
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It's got to be one of those.
It's that cave that the Vikings built.
They built it.
It's nothing like that around here.
I got this old root cellar. You know, it was here when my house was built, but
We asked him if there was like a standing stone, and he was like, "Nothing like that around here. There's just a cave over there that the Vikings built." And we're like, "What? Yes, that thing."
that's what.
Also, my uncle's friend owns a quarry right next door to where my uncle's house is. And he also owns another piece of property on another mountain. And on the side of that mountain, they were clearing up there, I don't know if they made the road before or after, but I guess maybe they were exploring. And there was supposedly what we were told was an old kiln
A kiln, yeah.
that was built on the side of the mountain. And they took us up there, and it had in a big rainstorm or something, it had collapsed. Like part of it had collapsed, and
We went up there right after Sandy, didn't we?
Was it brick or was it a stone?
huge stones.
It was gigantic.
massive. You can't pick them up. Stones,
And it was cylindrical.
stacked.
Yeah. And it was
And it's on this slope, dude. That's like so ridiculous, and it's
Holy
way
cow.
up on the side of the mountain, way far away from the valley. And we're
Yeah.
like, "What are you burnt? Why? Why here?"
Yeah.
Yeah. We went up there. We got there right after Hurricane Sandy.
Okay, that's what it was.
And so Hurricane Sandy had come through. This is Vermont, but they still got a huge. We saw houses collapsed into rivers, and like
landslide kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So they had cleared all around it, but there was a big tree on top of it, right? Because it's just so big that I can't remember if the tree was on top of it or if it was like right at the edge or whatever. Because the slope was so steep that it was basically built on the side of the
Into
slope.
the side of the slope, yeah.
Right. So this tree collapsed and the roots carried a bunch of the part of the wall with it.
Yeah.
Right. So
But I don't know how you could describe it as a kiln. But that's just,
That's what they called it,
What's
yeah.
been told,
Right, it's like that
and maybe it was
beehive
even
shape, kind of.
maybe it was even told to the owner. I don't
Yeah.
know if they called it that or what.
Right.
Nobody really knows what it is.
yeah. If it was a kiln, it was metallurgical probably
Yeah.
rather than.
But
who
it
knows?
was-
Mining copper.
So yeah, it's like, what equipment did you have on the side of this hill to pick up these stones and stack
Right.
them that high? I mean,
Yeah.
Right. Much less so.
And why?
So I wonder, did the stones come from uphill or from the valley?
Yeah.
Because if they come from the valley, that makes it even harder to get them up there. Because
Yeah.
you're carrying them uphill.
yeah, I can't imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
there's plenty of places to get it,
Yeah.
get the stone, but
If it's the same stone.
right.
Which
So
we
anyway,
haven't-
we're gonna visit that place again, and I
Yeah.
think they've already started rebuilding it, or they have a plan to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And now these are quarry guys, so they're used
Yeah.
to lifting gigantic blocks of
right.
stone.
Right.
They have a marble quarry. It's green marble. It's like one of the rarest forms of marble in the world. I think there's
Only one other
place where they get
It's like
get
in
it.
France or
okay.
something.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. So they have this deep pit.
Might
and-
check us on that, Watcher.
Yeah, they cut these blocks. We've seen them because we've gone to the quarry, right? And then they cut these blocks out that are like I don't know, like a minivan sized. And then
That's nothing.
Yeah, just a minivan. You know what I'm saying? And then they have a mounted crane that will basically get them up out of the quarry and put them down, and then they cut them into
Chunks.
whatever
they can
chunks.
put
Yeah,
on a truck and.
but yeah,
So yeah, right behind my uncle's house is just this massive
hole in the ground.
square hole that just goes way down.
They've just been pulling blocks out.
You can't see the bottom.
Holy cow.
Approaching, you have to literally like stand
down
on the edge
to see the bottom.
see the
It's
bottom.
so
down.
far down there. Yeah,
Throw
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And then there's, in the wintertime, there's like ice
yeah,
on the bottom.
yeah. It fills up
Don't
with
even
some
get
water.
close to the edge
Right.
during the winter because you're just going.
Right, because the edge it's got huge icicles
Yeah.
hanging over the
Yeah.
edge of it, and so it's really a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Yeah, when I was talking to the guy up at the top of the mountain about going down looking at the cairns and all that, he was like, "You have crampons?"
What?
No, I don't have any crampons. "Oh, well, it might be tough getting down there. Yeah, I wish I'd had crampons.
What do I need crayons for?
What do I need crayons for? Well, it's a little upsy.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Dude, that's really awesome.
So you went to the museum too, you said, right?
I did, yeah. We got to visit the Museum of the American Indian in New York City,
Awesome.
and they have artifacts. I think it's a private collection from a guy that went all over the U.S. collecting Native American and Central American artifacts.
Getting them for the Smithsonian.
Getting them for the Smithsonian. That's right. And they had things, artifacts from Teotihuacan and before,
Yeah,
BC,
Olmec stuff.
Olmec type stuff.
Yeah.
All the way up through modern day Native American quilts and bead
Wow.
weavings and all this.
So you showed me
phenomenal artwork.
me some pictures. That I agree with you. That obsidian mirror is probably the most.
That is probably the most outstanding artifact I saw there.
Yeah.
Is that
Oh,
obsidian
God.
mirror, and it's, I would say, roughly the size of a large dinner plate,
Yeah.
and it is polished to a perfect shine.
Is
And
it
this
flat? I mean, it's
flat,
Flat black.
so it's
Flat.
not warping your image.
No, like I have and
He's
I'll-
got these photos where you can see the reflected lights
of the display lights.
the display
in
light
them.
rack. You can see it perfectly reflected in the top of the mirror.
Oh
it's
my
just
gosh.
And
it's freaking
astounding,
amazing.
astounding. And I'm looking at the other.
We'll put some of these on the show notes, people, because you got to see these pictures.
It's
yeah.
absolutely amazing. I'm looking at the other statues they have there from Teotihuacan and places around that area. And what astounded me most, and I showed you a picture of this, was
Yeah.
they'll have a statue, and then next to it is this ceremonial yoke, like the oxen yoke, but I don't think it's an oxen yoke. I think what they said it was the like they would use rubber yokes as a bumper for the hip ball, the ball game.
Oh, yeah,
they
the
used to
ball
play.
game, yeah.
And they said it was a
It's the only real football.
Right. They said it
that,
was
Patrick?
a stone ceremonial version of that. But it's placed next to this statue, and you look at the statue, and the statue is very rough hewn.
Yeah.
Very pockmarked, like someone took a stone and carved this thing out by force.
Right.
Versus the yoke, which is just this polished, smooth granite.
And it's granite.
And the workmanship between the two, standing next to each other, is just
Yeah, so
mind-blowing.
the yoke is this like horseshoe shaped thing, and it's all stylized and carved. And the front of it is this gigantic like nose, like it looks like a bull
It's like
nose.
a face, yeah, like a mouth and nose kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like it has these huge nostrils that are deep cut and smooth, and it's just this beautiful polished granite, just gorgeous. And in the statue next to it, it's still well done, but it's very rough.
It ain't
you know?
well done compared to that yoke.
Right, right.
Like you look
Yeah.
at
So
that
what-
and the
what-
yoke next to it, and
What are the two? How are they connected again?
They think they basically are the same site, so they attribute to the same culture, right? But you're just like, okay, no, the guy who did that
was
not
it Johnson?
right?
the other guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. You got Johnson work versus non-Johnson work. Man, it's just,
This one's very non-Johnson.
Yeah,
and it's
Exactly.
astounding because they say it. Oh, this all came from the same people, around the same time. It's like, no, that guy definitely didn't make that.
Yeah.
and did not have the ability to.
The
make
other thing, if you're looking at the statue, so the statue is interesting just because I noticed that it was in the I think it's called the Seizen position, which is a very Asian.
Okay, hold on real quick.
What?
India, China, Greece, Italy, Turkey, and Vermont all have green marble. So South Central Asia, the Mediterranean, and Vermont.
From the Watcher.
Thank
there.
you, Watcher.
Yeah. So maybe it's like it's the only place in the Americas that has it or something like that.
maybe, but
It's just rare.
The other thing that struck me is looking at the statues that they had on display from Teotihuacan and the central southern American areas was that a lot of the older ones have a very African face.
Yes.
Very, very African nose and cheek features.
Yeah.
Whereas the Native Americans do not have that at
Right.
all. You
Yeah.
don't see that in their features at all.
Yeah.
And
They're more
so-
Asian or Mongol type
Yes,
looking. Yeah.
Yes. And so there's a very strange, like, where's the link here between these statues that look like they came from Africa
Yeah.
versus these peoples that are there now and were even there then when the Spaniards came across it.
Right.
The correlation doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, and like I was gonna say about the statue that we were talking about that was sort of rough cut, but the interesting thing to me about that statue was the position that it was in.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
in this like I think it's called Seizen, but it's a Japanese do it.
Like
it's
the cross legs with the arms
not
down.
cross legs, but they're sitting on the knees
On
with
your
their
knees,
with
with
their
your-
toes are down.
with your legs back.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your legs are back, your toes are down, right? Like so you're balanced on your toes and your kneecaps, and then the hands are on the knees and they're sort of leaned forward. It's it's like a type of bow, right? It's a position you would do in front of a superior, like you would
Right,
bow and then you would come up like that while they're talking to you. It's a very Asian, like Japan still has it,
Like
right?
a sign of subversion almost. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this statue is sitting in this position, right? So, but that's the rough cut one, and you can, when you're looking at it, you could tell that it's, that what was guiding the tool was like somebody's hand.
Yeah.
The arms are sort of off a little bit, and there's
can
just it's
see
not
the
symmetrical.
pockmarks
But
where-
that yoke, it looks like it was done by a CNC machine. Like
mirror
everything
image,
is
like-
perfect. Yeah, exactly.
and perfectly polished and smooth and no rough edge.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And granite.
And granite.
And the other one is not. What is the other
I don't know what the
I
other one
believe
was.
the other one was granite too. I'll share a link with
Yeah.
you afterwards.
Cool.
And they had a lot of that on display. Stuff, bowls that were just intricately carved. Some made out of what's the
Magnetite
mercury
or-
ore?
Cinnabar.
cinnabar. Some that were made out of cinnabar that looked like they were made on a lathe. Just
Oh, wow.
just perfectly polished and perfect square rims. And it's
Wow.
absolutely amazing stonework.
Man.
Sitting next to these statues that are obviously hand pounded.
Hand pounding.
Hand pounded.
And then you were like, Immer ducks.
Emmer ducks, that's right. That's right. They had the from Lovelock Cave in Nevada. They had the duck decoys on display there. They didn't, from my memory, they didn't have anything else from Lovelock Cave on display there.
Yeah.
But they had these duck decoys, and there were 3 of them there. And I got pictures of all 3 of them, and one of them is feathered just like a real duck.
Wow.
Has the feathers on it and all that.
That's
just the
amazing. How do you find an artifact like that under a mountain of bat guano? Like still
enough nitrates,
intact?
man.
Yeah,
Preservatives.
because that's what happened. They went there to mine the bat guano out of the cave.
and they mined a lot of it out
They're
of there.
making gunpowder, boy.
Yeah. Yep. Saltpeter.
couple of snake bros kept digging after they got to the bottom of it.
Right.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna stay here and keep digging, guys. I'll see you guys later.
All right. We're going to take a quick break.
Oh yeah.
And you know the rest of the story.
That's right.
With forked tongues, we hail from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science. 3 serpents.
3.
6 forked ends of tongues.
Snakes.
And our main snake, Russ Allen over here, unceremoniously forgot to introduce the one and only Watcher.
Yeah.
Who hails from his deep underground underspace bunker in his secret space station in outer space to watch over all that we do here on the Brothers of the Serpent podcast and keep us on the straight and narrow. Mr. Brett England, the Watcher.
The hidden 4th snake.
Yeah, how you doing there, buddy?
We buried him
What's
in
up?
Megalus.
Come on, turn your mic on. Let's hear it from the
space.
spaceman. Spaceman
Dude,
Spiff.
so like I wonder if I have to be then like tidally locked on the opposite side of the planet from the cube if I'm in space and then deep underground simultaneously.
It's an enigma.
Yeah.
No one understands your mysterious ways.
That's right.
However,
Let's keep it that way.
Let's keep it that way.
however, we do know that the Oracle serves the Watcher.
That's right. Google was constructed to serve the Watcher.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right, so we are back with special guest Mr. G May, and we are going to talk about Impossiblocks.
Oh, Impossiblocks.
Yeah.
Where do y'all want to start? You want to start with...
Let's start with Serapion because that's
Serapion?
an old Mr. Dunn.
So, and really that's where I went down this whole rabbit hole of precision and giant blocks. And,
Yeah.
it really started with looking into Christopher Dunn's research into the blocks of the Serapeum in Saqqara, Egypt.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many astounding...
Serapion means snake hole.
Snake
in
hole.
ancient Egyptian.
Underground snake hole.
Are you serious?
No.
I was going to say.
Serpent is in there somewhere. Serapium, it means...
Serpentium.
Yeah.
It's one and the same.
Oh, now I know what those giant stones blocks are. That's what they leave behind in the snake hole
Snake
after
hole.
they eat something.
What really struck me about these is what Christopher Dunn highlights about the precision in these
Yeah.
blocks. And to start with, these are granite and basalt blocks that are roughly 6 by 10 by 8
Yeah.
in size. Feet.
Right.
That's a big freaking block.
Yeah, it is a huge
We're
block.
talking when they're actually hollowed out and made into a box, we're talking a 70-ton box with a 30-ton lid on it. The lid itself is 30 tons.
Yeah.
And
Some secret conspirator in the late night podcast mentioned that because of the weight of the lid, it creates a hermetic seal.
right, so with the weight and the precision with which they're cut, there is a hermetic seal between the box and the lid.
Yeah.
And then this is really what
no mortar, no glue,
no mortar, no
seal,
glue.
Yeah,
no
just
neoprene.
it's
slid in. You know.
granite on granite action here, folks. That's it. And
That sounds like a really specific fetish porn right there.
right, granite on granite action. That's right. And
Rule 34.
the thing that really struck me in just I work with precision instruments, measuring precision blocks and shit all the time.
Yeah, so explain your, because you're like Christopher Dunn, you work with precision tools. So
Right,
talk
right.
about that.
So I work in cameras, precision camera systems, and so in certain cases where we're doing metrology measurement on something very precise, thousandths of an inch levelness matters.
Yeah.
And even the material with which you make the fixture that holds the camera matters to a certain extent if you're looking at things like thermal shift and changes in dimension when you put these measurement devices in different environments.
Right. Thermal shift being that like to change in temperature will like cause material to slightly flex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if we have something that needs to be very precise, we use a material called Invar, which is very thermally stable metal.
Oh, wow.
It's a very thermally stable alloy. Probably the most thermally stable
It's
alloy.
invariant.
It's invariant.
Invar.
Invar, yeah.
Oh, wow. I like a little etymological knowledge there. buddy.
Around there. So I look at what Christopher Dunn has gone and looked at, and he's taken, and I get this from his website, gizapower.org or .com or whatever it is, .net.
Yeah.
And he's taken a precision square that is square to 50 millionths of an inch.
Wow. That's precise.
So a human hair, to give comparison, is 2,500 millionths of an inch.
Okay, so we're talking way more precise.
Way more precise than the thickness of a human hair. 50 times more precise than the thickness of a human hair.
Wow.
In right angle straightness.
And then
Now,
along the edges, too.
this is the tool he's using
This is
to
the
measure.
tool he's using to measure the
right
squareness
angle.
of the wall and the lid
Yeah.
in these boxes. And this means that both walls are square with that lid within 50 millionths of an inch and are also perpendicular within that range as well.
Right.
And he does this by placing the tool in the corner and then shining a bright light behind it.
Yes, and you can see in the pictures that he has on his site the perfect reflection of the square in the polished surfaces
Yeah.
on the inside of
Wow.
that stone
Like the
box.
reflection touches the square itself all along, and there's no light coming through it. It's just
It's absolutely phenomenal, and exactly,
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Exactly. And to look at that as an engineer and understand what that level of precision requires just to do for a block of aluminum. You take a cube of aluminum and try to machine it to those tolerances.
Just the right angles
You
on the
need
cube.
you need a machine that's hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that, to those right angle tolerances, and hold
Yeah.
it across the face of that cube in all three dimensions.
right.
And so to do that with granite or basalt, and to do that in a confined area, because these blocks we know were brought in raw. There's one of these blocks sitting in the tunnel
And it's
leading
raw.
into these chambers, and it's rough hewn. There's no. It's
Is
not
it not
polished.
hollowed out?
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
hollowed out.
It hasn't been.
nothing.
It has not been made.
So they cut
Yeah.
the lid from the top of the box It's
After
all
they brought the whole-
after they brought the whole thing in there. And so, one, they were able to carry at this point when it's a solid block, it's your 70-ton empty box plus 30-ton lid plus everything inside it. So you're looking at 150, 200 tons in one block.
And it's in a tunnel cut into the bedrock in Saqqara, and there's barely any room. Like people, there's
You shimmy past it
Yeah.
to get to the rest of
There's
it.
actually, if you look at the pictures, they had to, whoever first came in had to knock out part of a corner to get past the last part of the block because you can't, there's no way to fit.
There's no way to
so
get
you can
past
see
it.
that the wall has been like chopped out roughly by somebody, or maybe it was blown out by gunpowder or how they did, but because you can't squeeze past the block. So there's no room to get anybody in
No.
the tunnels to move the blocks.
Right. So they moved all the blocks in there and then cut the inside out and cut the lid off. And first cut the lid off, then
Yeah.
cut the inside out, and then polished it all to a perfect sheen,
Yeah.
while maintaining 50 millionths of an inch precision in right angle squareness between the lid and the side of the box.
Right.
And
So-
then you look at the interior of the box, because when you machine a box out, say you've got a block of aluminum and you use a bit to mill out the inside of the box, you're going to have where the round bit encounters the corners, you're going to have a radius
Right.
that is very difficult to machine out. It is almost impossible to get rid of these internal machining radiuses
Yeah.
inside of cavities without very specialized machining. And he measured the inside corners of these boxes to 5/32 of an inch radius,
Holy crap.
which is, watch or do my math for me. It's around 80 thousandths of an inch radius, something like that.
Man.
Well, 5/32.
So
Right.
3/16 is
yeah,
9
2 and a half
935.
sixteenths.
Yeah. Incredibly precise for the inside radius. So if you were to use a traditional mill for that, you're looking at a 5/16 diameter mill bit to do that.
No.
5/16
5/32?
5/16 diameter, 5/32 radius, right?
Oh, radius.
So-
okay.
So you would have to have a mill bit that's 8 feet long
Yeah.
to get down to the bottom corner of that box.
Or some type of arm that could
or
move
some
it down.
kind of arm with a ball end mill.
with a
that
ball
can
end
go
mill that could go down the corner. Unbelievable. This is ridiculous.
And then they were able to polish the corner.
And then
course
they
we
were
knew.
able to polish everything inside of it to a mirror finish.
Yeah.
Which
So-
I've never polished granite with sand before, but I can imagine it'd be difficult.
Yeah. And I don't think you could get them. If you look at the finish on these boxes, they literally are mirrors. Like, it looks like a mirror.
Yeah.
You can, like, there are photographs where from the outside of the box where somebody is taking a photograph of the roughly hewn, like, looks like somebody carved with a nail. These
The
like
inscriptions on the
hieroglyphs
outside, yeah.
outside,
Yeah, it
on the
looks like a
outside, but you
child
can
did 'em,
see behind that that cut, and those, they're very rough and they're not polished, but you can see the cameraman in the reflection
Yeah.
of the side of the box, right?
Yeah.
Blocked by these hewn glyphs that are on the side of it, and it's just like,
So I don't know if you said this. I got disturbances over here, technical difficulties going on, but handling all of them flawlessly.
Flawlessly.
Zero mistakes. You had said earlier when we were outside that if the stone lids had been cut out prior, like say in a shop, like in a mill
Right.
somewhere,
Right.
outside above ground, and then brought down inside in two pieces, that you would not get that hermetic seal because the stone would flex.
Yes. So thermally, from what I understand, if you were to, I mean, you take what's outside of the Serapeum, which is desert,
yeah,
which is 100 degrees,
yeah,
low humidity,
Right.
versus the inside of the Serapeum, which is considered around 60, 65, 75
72.
degrees, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
yeah.
You're going to have huge thermal changes in anything
Yeah.
that big, going between a 30-degree change when
Right.
you're trying to be that precise.
Right, especially
I mean,
any
we
kind
deal-
of any
deal-
kind of
So
Sorry, any kind of what?
any kind of stone, because every stone, no matter what, has a certain water content
Right.
mixed in.
Right.
And then there's what they call TOC, total organic content.
Right.
So even
Which
granite
expands and contracts,
right?
yeah.
And so all that will have water in it, and like granite, sort of famously, has enormous thermal changes, right? So nearby here we have Enchanted Rock, which is granite, and it's split. It's a big bulb of granite that's just sort of sticks up out of the all the limestone that's around here, and it's got a big split down it. And when the sun goes down, sometimes, and you can find this on the park website for Enchanted Rock Park. Sometimes you hear these moaning noises of the rock shifting and changing shape, and rubbing against itself and groaning. And so the rock itself will make these noises, right? And that's because of and it's like these right, like the creaks and moans of a gigantic dragon, because the granite itself has massive thermal changes just from 10 degrees change.
Yeah.
So
Just a fraction of an inch of that rock sliding past itself
right.
cause crazy noise
Yeah.
to happen.
So like they had to bring the boxes in and then build them on site. And we know they did this because there's, like you said, a raw
box.
Yeah, a raw block in the hallway.
Yeah. But I was just thinking of something that you, Russ, have said many times, like form follows function.
Yeah.
Right. So there, like, to me, thinking of all of these things that you're talking about, it's like, well, what type of thing, device, machine, whatever, would require this hermetic seal without any type of, just pure stone, right? That you need at that temperature. In other words, you have to have it underground. You don't want any temperature fluctuations. You need the tunnel to be small. You need the box inside to sit in the socket, excuse me.
Yeah.
All of these things, like, so we have to do this project where we're going to tunnel in. We can't make the tunnels very big. And then we have to build a machine that's going to be able to cut the stone inside that small space.
Yeah.
And make it to this ridiculous degree of accuracy. Like, what kind of, is there anything?
Yeah. So if form follows function, what is the function of the box?
Is there anything that you could think of today that would require something to that nature?
Well, it certainly wasn't dead bodies.
Touche.
The only thing I can think of is industry.
Except that there was a dead body.
Well, yeah. So we can talk about that too. I don't know much about that. Just that they found it. Except that there's 20-something blocks inside.
Yeah.
The Serapeum. Yeah.
So the other thing, let's briefly give a description of the Serapeum, right? It's just a few tunnels. The tunnels are just a little bit larger than the blocks.
Yes.
Okay. But then there's all these alcoves off the sides of the tunnels. The alcoves are.
It looks like a key.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a key.
Like
the alcoves are larger.
Old skeleton key.
The alcoves themselves are larger than the tunnels. So there was room in the alcoves, more room than there is in the tunnels. Not a lot of room. Okay. But once the block is in the alcove and out of the tunnel,
which the alcoves themselves had a cutout
socket
for
the block to
blocks
sit in,
fit perfectly in.
Right. So the block is
staggered. By the way, there's these cutouts for the block.
Yeah, they're staggered. Mm-hmm. Like if you're standing,
there's some on the left, there's some on the right, and they're like.
So if you were standing at the entrance of one of the alcoves and you were facing the other wall, you would just be seeing a wall, and to your right and to your left would be the entrances to the other alcoves.
We're gonna have to post this. This is a great diagram.
Yeah,
that,
the
Watcher just put up.
It's got a nice little masonry symbol in the background there with an eye on it.
Well, and what's crazy if you look at the overhead is they were very neat and organized.
Yeah.
But then you look at the number 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Right. And those alcoves are tiny.
They're tiny alcoves, and they're very disorganized in placement compared to all the other alcoves.
It's almost like this was the original plan, like the very end of the tunnel where they're very uniform alcoves that are staggered perfectly. The walls are all cut on their way out to sort of bevel off, and then back here, closer to the entrance, it's like these are sort of additions that were thrown in, like, and then the additions get
like an afterthought.
yeah, it's like, oh, we need more. We need more. Like, just make a couple of
throw a few
alcoves right
more
there in the main hall. It's like,
Yeah, and then you can see the blocks that they've numbered 1, 27, and 26 are in the hallways still.
Yeah, they're still sitting there. I think 27 is actually the lid of a block.
Oh, okay.
The lid for 26. I could be wrong. I think 1 is the famous picture of people sliding past.
Yeah.
get that lid out of
Get
here.
that lid out of here.
Yeah, and I don't know if you read any about what the Sander model thinks the Serapeum was.
The only thing I've read is that they found the carcass of a bull or the mummy of a bull.
Yeah.
In one of them. The rest all were open.
Yeah.
When Hewitt or the British explorer found them.
Petrie.
Petrie.
Yeah. Petrie was sort of infamous in Egyptological circles for being very forthcoming with his astonishment,
Yes. And he was a guy who started the whole precision thing.
Yes.
He was originally the one who went and found that, these boxes, these statues, this stuff is cut to within a 10,000th of an inch.
Yeah.
He was able to verify that in the 1800s.
Right.
And then
He was also the one that started the investigation of the cores.
Yes.
that
And
they
that's
found.
another thing I want to talk about.
We'll talk about the
stone
cores eventually. But yeah, these boxes, I don't know, like what I've always thought is that up until very recently, and I mean very recently, you could not have opened these boxes. Just period. You cannot affect granite with copper. You basically need iron or more.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right? So, like, if you wanted to seal something away,
You need dynamite.
from anyone too primitive to get to it. You just make a box like that, and then you put it in there, and then no one can get to it. You can't move them. There's not enough room.
You're not opening it.
No one's going to open it until they have the ability to blow it open with explosives, which they didn't have.
Which we finally had. And that's
Eventually we had, and they blew a bunch of, they blew one of them open. But like, you can't chisel it away with copper. You can't. You can bang on it all you want with your granite, with your piece of granite, your granite ball or whatever. You're not going to affect it. So like, it's an
Because the lids weren't just laying on top; they actually had a part that went down so that it sat down inside. Or was it just,
no, from what I understand, they lay flat on top.
so it was just flat. So they
It's
could be
flat.
slid across.
They could be slid across.
If you had
if you
powerful
could slide a
enough force,
30-ton block.
Yeah.
right. If you can push 30 tons,
and
right.
you have to remember that the friction is incredibly high because it's touching it all the way along everywhere.
for however many thousand.
And there's
years.
also a vacuum seal.
Ever try to?
Yeah.
Like, I have problems getting the freaking lid off of my jalapenos.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't freaking open
I gotta
the pickle jar.
I gotta break out a steel tool and start banging on it.
right,
You know? Like, come on, you stinking
Heat it
neoprene
up.
seal.
Some boiling water to crack the seal. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've thought that if nothing else, you could consider them to be sort of high-tech safes, right?
Absolutely. Because nothing's getting into that apart from teeth.
Right,
Yeah,
and
safe
then if you
time capsule.
so
/
this
safe.
may be a looted Hall of Records.
And it's shaped like a freaking key. Come on.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah,
Like, imagine these later editions, like what I'm calling the later editions, weren't there.
right.
It's-
The reason he's
you
calling
have
it
a
a
key,
key, for
yeah.
those of us who can't see it, or for those of you who can't see it, we'll post the pictures. But it's basically the tunnel arc, this tunnel structure, like from the top down to the end, where all the alcoves are sticking out as little pins on a key. Is why it looks like a key. We'll post the pictures. You guys can just check it out.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, but it is key. It is very key shaped, and then the stuff that's not key shaped looks like later editions, maybe, or who knows, or maybe they were hurried. Somebody was hurried.
It looks hurried compared to the.
Yeah,
To the first
so
edition,
like going with my hypothesis that maybe it was a repository. Right? Like, if you think of all these ancient stories where right before the cataclysm happens,
try and
people
save
are told
everything up.
to stash a bunch of stuff, cut down underground and stash a bunch of things for safekeeping so that they could go get them later. There you go.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Okay. So the one that was not opened, right? All of them have the lid slid off of them, or just at least moved to the side where you can
Yeah.
look down in, and they're all empty, right?
Yeah.
Some had sand in them or something like that. Is that true?
Yeah, there was sand blown in. They had to clear it all out of there.
okay,
So the
okay.
ones that were open had sand.
All
in
right.
them,
So here's
yeah.
my idea. There was one in there that the lid was still perfectly sealed.
Yeah.
The people who came and got the repository left a clue to when they got it. So they took everything out, and then one of the boxes they filled with soils and the skeleton of the bull that basically
Pointing
was
to Taurus.
Pointing to Taurus. The age of Taurus is when they opened it and they took it out.
Oh man.
That's really cool. So it's like my hypothesis plus your hypothesis.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right. Mystery solved.
Mystery solved.
Next mystery.
Next mystery.
Next.
So I'd like to know what, like, there's two sort of conflicting accounts. You thought, or Archer, you had mentioned there was like a mummified bull skeleton, and then you had said that it was like just full
Fragmented.
of all this debris, but inside of it was the full skeleton of
Yeah,
of,
but
of a bull.
it was
They had
mixed
to piece
in
it
with,
together.
If I'm remembering correctly, it was full of soil. There was the entire skeleton of a bull in there, but it was in fragments. But it was also mixed in with the fragmented chunks of many other things.
How badly fragmented was that after TNT?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
gonna be to get that granite box open.
Yeah,
it's gonna
you're gonna
be
be
a
needing to-
serious blast.
Yeah.
What's it gonna do to the contents?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Well, we just
yeah.
we just
further
blew
research.
this safe open and everything inside's fragmented. I don't understand.
All the bills are burning. Yeah, no. From what I understand, there was a carcass of a bull. I don't know if it was mummified or what the other contents were, and I haven't dug into that. I was so astounded with the boxes that I just rabbit holed down into the boxes without caring about the contents.
So that's the way to do it.
Right.
It's not the other way, where we only look at the contents and not the box.
I'm not thinking outside of the box. I'm thinking about the box.
Yeah. I'm inside the box thinking about the box.
itself. Yeah. And it's just looking at it from an engineering standpoint, we can't do that stuff today.
Right.
Like you were saying in the break, just a block of granite that size, before you even cut it out, just the raw stone is what, $180,000, something like that.
Yeah. And that was in 1980.
And that was in 1980.
Christopher Dunn went and talked to a bunch of the top stone quarry, stone working places that he could find. And the top one responded. The guy, he's got a piece of the dude's email in his book or whatever, or the letter the guy sent back to him saying, "Thank you for all this fascinating information. I have no idea how they did this. If we were to do it today, number one, the block itself, not even cut out of the quarry, just the stone in the quarry,
real estate.
the real estate stone in the quarry is still not cut out of it, would cost you like $175,000 to $180,000, and that was in 1980 something. Then he was saying that you would have to get thousands of government permits to be able to transport it because it's the weight and the cargo is just
infrastructure needed to
the infrastructure needed to move it is so ridiculous. You'd have to clear entire highways to get it down the road. And, and then after that, they would put it in their shop, right? Because he was like, we can't do it on site. These blocks were clearly cut on site. He was like, we'd put it in our shop and we would do our best to make the block, but then we would have to cut it into 5 pieces to deliver it, and then we would bolt it together on site to try to get the tolerances correct. But it wouldn't be exactly correct because they obviously made them in the tunnels. And he was like, we're not capable of doing that. All of our giant machines for cutting giant blocks are here in the shop.
Yeah.
And we don't have any giant machines for cutting giant blocks that we could take to a site
a tunnel.
and do it in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Much less move the block.
Right.
But
So
before any of that, basically what you're saying is, for all you totalitarianists out there, you need a pharaoh that's like, bring the block. It's like all the red tape is gone.
yeah, that's right. Bring me block.
Okay for all permits.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's step number 2.
Yeah.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
you gotta.
First, you got to get it
First
out
you gotta
of the
buy it.
wall. Yeah.
Right. First, you need to be the ruler of the entire world.
And then you got to do it 26 more times.
Right.
So where did they come from? Where was the granite? Is it
They assume Aswan,
Aswan.
They have soon on Aswan, yeah.
but it's
500 miles away or whatever?
Yeah,
Aswan.
Aswan.
yeah, Aswan has the famous pink granite right? But I'm pretty sure there's other types of granite there because it's obviously not pink granite. This stuff
are
is
the
very
black.
dark.
Right, that's the black granite. I think some are basalt. too.
Yeah, and
Oh,
basalt.
that might be a basalt. Yeah. God, it's amazing.
So just some interesting stuff about cutting granite for people that don't know this. Like I was looking into this like recently this week. Granite is an agglomerate of materials. It's formed what they call abyssally, right? So it's an igneous, technically igneous, but it's formed abyssally. In other words, it isn't the same as lava that flows out onto the surface and then hardens.
Yeah.
Right? Basalt is a type of granite that mostly forms deep underwater, right? So you like way down underwater where the
High
pressure is
pressure,
incredibly
yeah.
high, and then the water
lava
does
comes
all
up and
right. The water
crams
does
it down.
weird things to it too, like just the coldness and the way the heat is radiated off of it and can't
Right.
go very far very fast.
So it does certain things with crystalline.
Right. So
structure.
sometimes you get columnar basalt, which is a crystalline formation of basaltic rock, right? But regular granite that doesn't have that doesn't form those hexagons forms abyssally. So the lava gets up into the crust somewhere and then cools very slowly and hardens over time under great pressure.
Yeah.
Right. So granite is made abyssally, like think 40 miles down underneath the crust or whatever, right? So you got a volcanic thing and you've got a like a volcanic what are they called? The chambers.
Yeah, magma chamber.
Right, magma chamber. So the lava injects into the magma chamber and fills it, and the pressure is still incredibly high, and it never makes it to the surface in a volcanic eruption, but just slowly over time cools and hardens, and then other pressures are possibly the same magma
You
pushing
got
it up.
pushing up, and
Right.
the crust pressure pushing
Down, right. So then eventually, if all the circumstances are right, like with Enchanted Rock, the bowl or the top dome of that will end up on the surface or near the surface, and you can start mining it. Okay, so that's granite. It's abyssal. It's full of a bunch of different materials that are held together by molecular and atomic bonds rather than chemical ones. Like we're used, most of our glues they're all chemical
bonds, yeah.
right? But when you have a molecular bond, it's incredibly strong, and an atomic one is even harder, right?
Yeah.
So granite's like that, and like the Aswan granite, the famous pink Aswan granite is like 55% quartz.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got an incredibly high quartz content. Whereas, and most granite has quartz in it, which is why if you move it around in the sun, it sparkles.
Sparkles, and you
Okay,
get
it's got
quartz
little tiny
veins and
chunks,
gold in
right?
it and all that, yeah.
Yeah, it's got little tiny bits of all this different kind of material. So cutting granite is a pain in the ass because your cutting tool is hitting a different material every time it moves along it. It runs into a piece of quartz, and then it skips off the quartz, and then it hits something softer, and then it hits something harder right after that, after it cuts into the soft thing. And so it tends to shatter cutting tools.
Yeah.
Granite is incredibly difficult to cut. Lasers don't do anything to granite. You know, if you have a really high-powered laser and you start hitting it, it'll start heating it up, and little chips will fly off.
Right.
But it isn't going to cut it.
It won't ablate and just
Right.
blow away.
It'll end up like, little chips will fly off because of the heat differences, right? But you can't really cut granite with lasers properly. It's just gonna shatter it and destroy it, right?
So
Cutting
today
tools,
they do it with like diamond tip blades with running water
right?
to keep it cool.
To keep
and
move
move the material out of the
right.
way.
And one of the ways that we etch granite now is with like high pressure water streams full of sand.
Yep.
Because that's the best way to do it. It's basically an abrasive
Water
fluid.
jet it, yeah.
Yeah. Water jet is like the way they do it. You know, when you see the tombstones with the stuff cut deep into
Right.
them, they've done that with a very precise water jet.
On a CNC machine and
Exactly. Yeah. So this is phenomenal for all of those reasons, and like cutting through that quartz on the Mohs hardness scale is just below diamond. Rock crystal, basically quartz.
I think it's like a 7 or something.
Yeah, it's just below it. It's like, diamond is a little harder. So we have diamond tip blades if we're going to try to cut this stuff, and it will use up your tool very quickly.
Yeah.
So some of the core stuff that Petrie was looking at has have those incredibly deep, like the what is it called, the depth.
The tool marks.
Yeah, the tool marks
yeah.
show like that
the
it was
feed
like
rate, yeah.
the feed rate. That's what it is.
So,
yeah, incredibly
I think,
high feed
what
rate.
you're thinking of is actually, if you want, we can.
Oh yeah, we need to take a break.
Take a break. And we'll talk about core number 7.
Yeah, talk about core number 7.
I've ruined quite a few diamond blades trying to cut quartz.
Yes.
Heck, have you ever used one to cut tile? It wears down like that.
It's hardcore.
It's hardcore.
It's hardcore.